Welcome, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for Monday, November 4th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First 2 cards we are starting off our day with today are Lovers in its reversal in combination with the Star in its reversal. Let's work through this right now. What are we effectively seeing? Oh, we've spoken about this, okay? These periods, Scorpio season, difficulties, hurdles, sometimes some moments of discomfiture. It's in those spaces and places of discomfiture that we're often able to navigate and experience breakthroughs. But sometimes it can feel disruptive. Sometimes it can feel unpleasant, right? It's a little rough around the edges, but you have to recognize that transformation often occurs in modalities wherein that discomfiture brings us into a space of being ready to make those energetic changes. Now, this is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. I'm not surprised to see this. We've been seeing this Star card coming up back and forth, upright, reversed, upright, reversed. A lot of the feminine energy right now, bearing in that modality of working on that feeling of energetic protectiveness. There's a lot of heightened sensitivity that we often navigate as well during Scorpio season, working on not being energetically reactive. For feminine energy right now, a lot of this work that we see is occurring has to do in the realm of energetic relationships. That sense or that space of being appreciated, feeling appreciated. This is even happening right now for the energy deep within the divine union frequency. And a lot of that work that we see right now has to do with the sense or the space of the feeling of the feminine that feels that there is a responsibility to facilitate and navigate energetic connections. A lot of that work of the feminine at this time, we're just seeing this. This is happening across all of the frequencies. There's frustration there. Why is there energetic frustration? Well, one of the things that we recognized and identified, particularly for feminine and masculine, and we spoke about this yesterday, masculine being in that sense or that space of not feeling like there are so many energetic burdens that are put upon the masculine energy, right? A lot of that ability of doing so, it creates that space of masculine feeling that sense, and we want to say that integrity in being able to be energetically autonomous to a certain extent. A lot of the feminine energy feeling the weight of maintaining the energetic connections throughout that. Now, for masculine and feminine, we spoke about this yesterday, deep within divine union. That ability of trying to come into a place of mutual resolution as it relates to a differentiation of perspective. That has a lot to do with what we're seeing in relationality to potentially masculine coming forward and articulating something about the way that they would do something that feminine is almost saying is not in the same alignment with the feminine energy's own abilities or their own perception of doing so. Why? Because we keep seeing that a lot of the frustration of the feminine has to do with the sense or the space of the unalignment that often occurs in relationality to the perspective of the feminine self. When we see the feminine in this modality, this can create a lot of that sensitivity, a lot of that energetic frustration. And a lot of that work that we see right now with the feminine has to do with the energetic overwhelm in relationality to the burden of responsibility that feels like the feminine has placed upon them in order to navigate and maintain energetic connections. So we see even now that a lot of the energy right now deep within divine union are facilitating and doing that work to try to come into a space of easement, right? Particularly and especially if this is feminine deep within divine union, articulating upon their own, and I want to say their own limitations in relationality to what they can bring forth, right? And I want to say the one advantage here that we're recognizing, particularly for a lot of the energy deep within divine union, is a lot of the feminine amplifying and articulating the strength and value of their own ability to say no. Why do we see that so much here for feminine? Because we're recognizing that for a lot of the feminine energy, when you come into that space of healing from any environment of the past wherein it felt like you had to be in the space of always people pleasing, of always working through, of always facilitating that easement for others, the feminine coming into that space of learning how to effectively, gracefully, articulate upon being ready to energetically disappoint others because they're calibrating into a space of identifying what is and is not possible within the feminine perspective. We see even now that is a lot of the feminine that's working through that right now. But it's a lot, I gotta say, it's a lot of that better out than in, if you will. It's a lot of that feminine, almost airing of those energetic grievances in a way, but in doing so, in order to facilitate better energetic connections moving forward. Now, masculine, I'm just seeing again, a lot of that sense or space of overprotectiveness to a certain extent. A lot of that overprotectiveness that may be energetically occurring right now in relationality to the partnerships. We're seeing even now that for a lot of the masculine, experiencing and navigating, seeing something from the perspective of the feminine. And we're going to talk about this as we come into the energy coming into divine union right now. Because that ability of doing so, this is a lot of the masculine energy almost holding space for the feminine, navigating those energetic frustrations. Now, for the energy coming into divine union right now, this is a very important tantamount importance because these are energies, and you'll remember during the eclipse cycle, that we're navigating forward in order to navigate and recognize what needed to change in order to facilitate a better energetic connection going forward. A lot of this energy prioritizing upon the energetic partnership. And so we see even now that ability of doing so, this is the feminine that to a certain extent, I want to say, feminine feeling that sense of wanting, I want to say the feminine right now coming into divine union is very, I want to say, energetically protective because this is a lot of the feminine energy coming into divine union that is being very mindful in relationality to what feels like a breakthrough versus what feels like momentary change, right? I see a lot of that energy right now of feminine facilitating upon that. And I'm not surprised to see this either, because you'll remember that observational point, we saw a lot of apology that was coming through the frequency yesterday. But I can almost see a lot of the feminine energy. If this was a modality of receiving energetic apology, this is almost a lot of the energy of the feminine basically saying, I'm not seeking apology, I'm seeking change, right? That's the energy that we're seeing here for a lot of the energy for a lot of the feminine coming into divine union. That space or place of articulating and saying, and I can almost either see the feminine in one of those two modalities right now. Either the feminine saying to masculine, no apologies necessary because you're actively changing. Or a lot of the feminine potentially going into that modality of the expression and the recognition point of being able to see and identify what that change is. Now, for a lot of the masculine right now, that energy coming into divine union, this is the masculine taking accountability to a certain extent, particularly in relationality. These are the energies right now, I want to say, getting to the heart of what the hurdles are. It's not easy. I can see it even here. This is a lot of the energy, like Scorpio season, man. It's like getting under the surface, like really digging into it, looking for how far a pattern of difficulty experienced. And I can see even now that this could be a lot of the masculine almost unpacking to feminine right now, coming into divine union, where something initially started, where those anxieties were, where those energetic fears of commitment may have occurred. And so for masculine and feminine right now, this is a lot of that work in the space of trust. And I gotta say it, a lot of that work in the space of trust has to do with the navigating of triggers. And we were talking about this yesterday. What does one do with a trigger? When you recognize another person's trigger, do you hold it carefully? Are you conscientious of it? Do you work to avoid it? Or when you're feeling threatened, do you immediately react towards it? Because I see even now, like a lot of that work facilitating there, it's identifying and recognizing what the energetic hurdles are, right? And that's what we're seeing even now, maybe occurring for a lot of the energy in separation. A lot of this energy in separation right now is unpacking with new energetic connections, like what those difficulties are. And I want to say a lot of this work that I see that the feminine is doing right now in separation, it feels triggering because it is reminding the feminine of the spaces and places in the past wherein the breakdown of a partnership occurred. But what do we see is happening right now for a lot of the feminine? That ability of not assuming that the past is repeating of the self. This is a lot of the feminine energy building into that sense of security and stability, wherein they're working to be their most authentic version of self. But you can see even here, it's hard because feminine is healing from a lot of wounds of trust if in separation. And so that ability of, like, I want to say, coming out of their shell, there's trepidatiousness there, there's caution, because this is a lot of the energy that has that desire to move towards masculine, but is also being energetically informed upon the fear that may have been built upon or carried from past trauma. Masculine also doing that work right now. Masculine also facilitating through to a certain extent and is also navigating those wounds. So we see what is happening right now for a lot of the energy in separation, treating one another's wounds in separation, navigating forward and being energetically careful with those wounds is how we see a lot of this energy that is repairing from the past. Because this isn't the energy that says that sounds like a you problem. This is an energy that looks towards one another and says, I'm sorry that occurred to you. What can I do to energetically help? Center card for today's spread. Whew. Ace of Cups in its reversal. I want to say today, there's a lot of feelings. I want you to recognize and identify that everyone is going to be very emotional today. I want to know where Venus is right now. I'd be very curious to know where that is, because I just see even now, everyone is being very, very precious and feeling very energetically sensitive. And a lot of that emotionality, a lot of that sensitivity. I want you, if you're navigating volatility, I want you to do so with a deep level and degree of compassion. We've been talking about this. The transformation of the scorpionic journey is taking the venom and turning it into an antidote. It's simple as that. Being able to take something that's harmful and turning it into something that's helpful. That ability of doing so, it requires a lot of energetic processing right now. So making sure that you're not just giving back what someone gives to you if you feel like it's not energetically ideal, but trying to transform it into something that is positive or productive. That's going to be the watchword for today. It is having a different impact on masculine and feminine. Feminine even more energetically sensitive today. So a lot of that work that's happening here, being able to hold a lot of the feminine in a place of compassion, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. While for masculine, that sense or that space of energetic camaraderie to a certain extent, I'm just seeing that for a lot of the energy right now coming in, like in separation, almost articulating towards feminine, that sense or that space of identifying and saying to the feminine that they're not alone in that journey. Because for a lot of the healed masculine right now, I'm just seeing in separation that observation. And I told you a few weeks ago, there was a lot of not even a few weeks ago, a few days ago, there was a lot of overprotectiveness that we were recognizing and identifying was occurring right now for energy deep within divine union. Now it's coming down to the energy in separation. I can just see a lot of that energy in separation, encountering new energetic connections that are already having, I want to say, a little bit of overprotectiveness, working through some of that energetic sensitivity. But I gotta say, even now, a lot of these cards, and I'm seeing in its reversal, it's really, really important today that you don't become reactive, because this could be a lot of that sense or that space of wanting to come into that overwhelm point. Make sure that you're articulating upon the emotions today instead of reacting to them, and give yourself the space to take care of oneself in the process. Now, for masculine and feminine energy right now that's coming into divine, like, and that's basically happening across all of the frequencies. There's just a lot. There's like a lot of this energetic exhaustion and a little bit more focus towards the feminine. Next two cards in our 5-card spread before we start getting clarification on these. Ugh, what a day for feminine and masculine. Okay. We got to talk about it. Today's a little bit, it's going to be like, it's bumpy today. It's bumpy because I see even now, everyone's kind of navigating from that space of anxiety. I told you, a lot of this Scorpio season can often be amplified by a lot of those feelings of anxiety, a lot of those feelings of recognition and trepidation in relationality towards care of the self and care of the others. Now, I can see even now for a lot of the energy in separation, that conscientiousness, that caution, a lot, I can see a lot of the masculine coming towards feminine right now in that state or space of, I want to say, camaraderie to a certain extent, because we have here our Empress in its reversal in combination with our King of Swords in its reversal. So we see even now like a lot of this energy. We've got a lot of reversals today. So this is saying that particularly in the realm, you have to remember that everyone that you're encountering today is in a space of feeling a lot of heightened sensitivity. And so being compassionate towards those that may be feeling not at their best because of some kind of feeling or sense of energetic overwhelm. What do we do when we find each other in these modalities? We put compassion where the cracks are. We create that level and degree of support. For feminine energy right now, particularly coming in separation, a lot of this feels energetically triggering to a certain extent, because I see even now that for a lot of the energy of the feminine in separation, that sense of feeling the weight of the self. I can see even now like a lot of that energy almost like moving into a little bit of hermit mode today. So masculine, I wouldn't be surprised if feminine isn't super communicative right now, because I can see even now a lot of that feminine being in a space of navigating and having to put a lot of additional care on the self today in relationality to how they're feeling seen and appreciated, or navigating any sense of anxiety. Masculine energy in separation today, I see a lot of the masculine also kind of navigating a lot of this as well, because that sensor space, I'm going to say this even now, masculine, don't take something that you're receiving from the feminine today energetically personally. Don't be in that space of assuming that it's directly related to the self, but almost coming into that space of looking towards the feminine and almost articulating and understanding the perspective of the feminine. Nobody's allowed to assume anything today, is what I'm really saying. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, I want to say that this feels to me that a lot of this breakthrough that I'm seeing right now, this is the articulation for a lot of energy today coming into divine union, that feels like the amplification of what feels restorative, what feels possible, what feels like there's the potentiality of being healed, versus recognizing what feels like it's inherent. That's what I see is occurring right now, that may be feeling like it's putting a lot of pressure on the energy coming into divine union. There's some kind of observation I'm seeing that's occurring for the energy coming into divine union, that's built upon and based upon the difference between what one feels that one can change versus what is a part of the self. And so even a lot of that unpacking right now, I can see that that's where a lot of that difficulty exists, because we talked about a lot of this energy of transformation. It's not easy, right? It's not easy, specifically and particularly because this is either the energy that's being, I want to say, recognizing what they're actively changing and coming into that space of apologizing for the past version of self, or this is a lot of that energy expressing frustration towards the self in relationality to, feeling less than energetically positive. But what are we seeing that is happening right now? And this is going to speak towards the energy deep within divine union. That sense or that space of support, right? Not just giving someone how you feel, but almost coming into that space of saying to another, what do you need? What can I do to facilitate helping through this? This is a lot of the only difficulty that I'm seeing right now is both masculine and feminine are experiencing a similar deficit today, right? So what do we do? What do we do when we're feeling similar deficits? We remind each other that we're not carrying that burden alone, that we're all energetically carrying it together, right? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Lover's card in its reversal in combination with our Star energy in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. Whew. A lot of abandonment wounds today. Everybody is on like that space of potentially feeling easily energetically triggered. Just please remember that as you go forward today. Everybody's like in that sense of just navigating a point of that trigger, working through that to a certain extent, allowing oneself the ability of patience. And we've talked a lot about this. This can happen a lot during Scorpio season. That, you know, the thing with Scorpionic journeys is often that sting, that pressure that we can apply to something, right? That's that moment that like we get defensive. When we get defensive, we reach out to protect ourselves. And sometimes when we reach out to protect ourselves, we hurt someone inadvertently. We say something that feels like it cuts to the quick. We do something that feels like it's an energetic act of protection, but it's becoming the reactivity point of feeling and experiencing the abandonment wound. So I'm saying this to you right now. Be slow today. Don't rush the processes. Don't rush yourself. If things feel like they're making you move faster, move slower to a certain extent, because that sense of making sure that you're moving with intentionality today will effectively help navigate potentially someone coming towards you with an abandonment wound and not reacting in the same way, but kind of giving it forth in such a way that you're able to create that sense of balance. You're able to create that sense of easement. You're not amplifying the abandonment wound. You're providing something to show context and saying, I understand why you might feel that way. What can we do to try to build into that place of easement? But it's heavy today. It's hard. And that's happening across all the frequencies. And for a lot of I want to say especially and particularly right now, for a lot of that energy in separation, I'm seeing even now like that, I keep getting the same message, that desire to move more quickly is present. It's there. I see a lot of energy in separation that almost feel like they're holding themselves back to a certain degree in relationality to moving towards a connection. But this is a lot of that energy that is doing so specifically and particularly because they're trying to utilize time to guarantee that sense of, I want to say, consistency in relationality to what they're moving towards right now. A lot of that energy is in that space where they recognize that the only variable that can allow for that sense of trust is time. But even here, we see that ability of not taking something personally or not getting sensitive in relationality to the wounds of the past energetic connections, right? Holding space for another person's wounds and almost like coming into a space of inquiry and curiosity instead of reactivity. If someone's coming towards you from a sense of trepidatiousness, this is the amplification of what feels positive, right? Because that addressing of the abandonment wound to a certain extent, that allows for potential breakthrough. While for the energy right now coming into divine union, I want to say this is giving me a little bit more of that, like, I keep getting the same message. The difference, something about coming into divine union that is being articulated in the difference between what is in one's power to change, like within the self, versus what needs to be energetically accepted about the self. Sometimes we hit those moments. But I want to say this even now, for a lot of that energy, being able to take accountability for one's own shortcomings, This is what's providing and allowing for a point of breakthrough. And that's why I see even now, and this is coming forward because of all of that energetic apology that we were seeing yesterday, right? The sense or space of apologizing versus being able to put that sense of activation towards it. I see even now, like I almost see someone saying, coming into divine union, no energetic apology necessary, particularly and especially because that's the energy that sees that active change as present, right? And when we see that active change as present and someone apologizes for the past version of self, that almost comes into that space of saying to another, like, I appreciate that apology, but it's not energetically necessary, versus some of that energy coming into a space. And this is where I see some of that frustration, where I see potentially some of that disruption occurring if these are modalities where someone is saying that the repetition of an energetic apology feels like it's a bomb instead of being able to actually come into a space of energetic change. We see even now this may be leading to very difficult conversations, right? In the fact of and this is why we talk about the fact that an apology is twofold. An apology is the observation of what one is accountable for with a recognition of what one is actively changing to avoid something from happening again. So we see even now that this may be having a little bit of that deep energetic unpacking in relationality to expressing what one feels one can change, what one is actively trying to change, versus coming into that space of recognizing and identifying what that looks like. And it's hard, it's heavy. Be very conscientious today having those conversations, because it feels a little bit like there's a bit of that sensitive subject that is being potentially struck there. While for masculine and feminine energy deep within divine union, this is holding space for each other's abandonment wounds. This is more of what we saw over the last few days. A lot of this energy working so tirelessly right now that they effectively, I almost see this is energy that is working through others' abandonment wounds, right? So having to navigate those points of reactivity. This is a lot of the energy deep within divine union that's shouldering the burden of another's abandonment wounds. And in the process, trying to do what they can to, I want to say, navigate, like they're saying, navigating around someone else's energetic hurdles, or navigating around someone else's energetic inabilities to appear, like energetic abilities to navigate their own abandonment wounds, right? And I keep getting like there's something about that feels very Piscean right now. So I'm also very curious as to where Pisces is, because a lot of that energy is observing an energetic obstruction and then navigating around it in such a way for the sake of healing the abandonment wound, because it's not trying to change another's abandonment wound. It's just it's kind of recognizing and identifying it and moving forward and trying to be productive in the process, right? Continuing to get clarification between our star card in combination with our Ace of Cups in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Ten of Cups in its reversal. There's frustration expressed today. There's anxieties. There's a lot of energetic fear. But again, what is the beauty? What is the beauty in being able to navigate those feelings of uncertainty? The reminder that you're not energetically alone in that process. So I see that even now, for a lot of the energy deep within divine union, that observation or experience of recognizing and understanding why someone may be feeling energetically overwhelmed at this time. I almost see that this is a lot of the energy coming into a space of deep compassion for one another, because it's a recognition of carrying that mutually, carrying that together, right? And for the energy deep within divine union, that sense or that space of doing what one needs to do to be able to facilitate that sense of balance. I see even now like the beauty that occurs in those moments is this is a lot of energy that, helps one another along the way. Masculine and feminine right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. being able to work in such a way of identifying what an energetic problem is, it allows for an ability to come into a better solution. But sometimes it's painful, right? It's painful because you have to recognize what the hurdle is. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, a lot of this energy that I'm seeing right now coming into divine union, I want to say these are heavy conversations right now. These are heavy conversations. And I want to say, and I'm not surprised to see something like this here during Scorpio season, someone potentially saying something that accidentally, inadvertently wounded, coming into that space of, and that's why I'm saying don't assume anything right now, because I'm getting a lot of this like retrograde vibe here. And I've been getting it over the last few days about potentially it's the realm of making an assumption is where we see a lot of that lack of clarity occurring. So that sense or that space of moving into having conversations, having difficult conversations, articulating upon how one feels instead of kind of harboring it, right? Because when we hold on, like they're saying, like when we hold on to bitterness, right? All we do when we hold on to bitterness is it festers us from within, right? Like that ability of holding on to that, like that's what we even see here, like that sense or that space of like, this is why we have to release fear and anger, because when we allow that fear and anger to sit within us, it just spreads, it just creates that sense of I want to describe this, like it's that building up, if you will. So we see even now that a lot of that ability of expressing something, this is a lot of that energy that I'm seeing coming into divine union that feels like better out than in, and being able to navigate those conversations in a way where you can hold space and recognize and identify and not take something energetically personally, but holding space for someone as they do so. This is how we see that a lot of this energy may be feeling a lot of pressure right now, because you recognize that for a lot of those who are working to come into divine union right now, it's having to push against one's own triggers, one's own defense mechanisms, right? Not taking something personally, but trying to be present, to be compassionate in relationality to how another feels. That's hard work, but it's vital. While for the energy right now in separation, I just see even now that for a lot of that energy in separation, this is energy that's building into a new energetic connection by expressing those mutual doubts, those mutual fears, those mutual uncertainties, right? We can build bridges with anything. And so I see even now that for a lot of that energy, there's something very cathartic in releasing a lot of those frustrations, in releasing a lot of those anxieties, because there's something in that expression of them and that feeling of not being energetically alone in the process that is feeling fortifying and renewing. Continuing to get clarification between our Ace of Cups in its reversal in combination with our King of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Swords in its upright. So a lot of heavy energy here that we're seeing. And a lot of this work that we're seeing right now in relationality to this has to do, like I told you, this is where I see that there's something about that expelling. There's something about that ability to articulate upon the frustrations today, to articulate upon the energetic fears. Often it is in the expressing of them that we find catharsis, right? So I almost see that for a lot of the energy right now, having that space to express that with new potential counterpart, it feels like it's creating catharsis. It feels like it's creating easement, because it's that energetic reminder that you're not alone in the experience of experiencing anything that feels like a modality of frustration. But it's hard because there's a lot of unpacking here is what I'm seeing. And for the energy coming into divine union right now, a lot of this work that I'm recognizing and identifying, I just keep seeing the same message for the energy coming into divine union, which is the observational point in recognizing and identifying what feels like one can actively change versus what the energetic counterpart has to accept. And that's hard. Like I can see that even here, because this may be those having conversations in relationality to showing someone or a counterpart a pattern, or identifying and recognizing what one sees is changing. So that's why I see even now there's either a lot of energy coming into divine union that's kind of apologizing for the past self, and someone saying to them it's not necessary because I can see the fact that there's some kind of energetic change that's already happening. Or these are a lot of those energetic connections that are occurring right now that someone may be articulating the difference between what one is expressing can change versus something that feels, I told you, something that feels like one does not desire to change, right? So this could be a lot of those conflict points that may be arising right now. Now for the energy deep within divine union, the beauty about this is recognizing a hurdle allows for a new solution. And so I see even now that for a lot of the energy deep within divine union, this is all about identifying problems so that you can tackle and recognize new perspectives in relationality to what one can do. And so even here, I want to say that for a lot of this energy deep within divine union, that ability of, I want to say, identifying and recognizing the limitations of others, if you will, like what their own points of anxiety or fear are. I just see a lot of that energy deep within divine union coming into that space of providing security, creating that sense of support, articulating upon it, and it feels restorative. But this is, I got to stress this, what's beautiful about this is a lot of the energy deep within divine union that isn't operating from a place of what they feel. They're operating from a place in recognizing what is needed, right? That's when we're able to pull parts from ourselves that we never even imagined were there, because it's that sense or space and we carry forward and are empathetic towards one another. We find parts of ourselves that we never discovered were there because this is so much of that energy that puts that concentration in the love and care of those around them. Continuing to get clarification between our King of Swords in its reversal in combination with our Empress in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our King of Cups in its reversal. So the one thing about today, I got to just say it, masculine and feminine energy, both experiencing a lot of feelings of energetic overwhelm today. And this is happening across all the frequencies and including the energy deep within divine union. Everybody's out of spoons today. Everybody's out of spoons. And when we say, I mean, and that sense or that space of being able to be like conscientious, looking towards one and saying, what is it that I can do? What is it? How can I help? Because for masculine, and it is having a different impact on masculine and feminine. For masculine, I see that a lot of the masculine energy right now is working through emotional overwhelm or navigating through a lot of emotionality that's making it hard to be able to focus on the effective task at hand to a certain extent. I just see even now a lot of this is coming through in the space of the masculine feeling some of that emotional overwhelm. For feminine, I feel like a lot of this is more of the feminine being in a defensive space today. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. A lot of that feminine energy navigating that feeling of conscientiousness in relationality to, I want to say, serving the needs of the self versus being able to serve the needs of others at this time. So we see even now a lot of these energies deep within divine union, I want to say, reaching into themselves and finding the things that they themselves don't have to provide for themselves, to give to the counterpart, specifically and particularly because that is the expression of love that we see that occurs within that frequency. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, I want to say this is one of those moments that may be feeling very difficult for the energy coming into divine union, because I'm seeing even now there's a lot of this work that's happening in relationality to an observation point of the past. And it says to me, today is a very triggering day. So if you're in the space of trying to heal from past tendencies or from past unhealthy patterns, that ability of feeling the easement of falling back into, something that you don't feel is necessarily positive for you. It's very high today. So that sense of doing so, I almost see could lead to a lot of those difficult conversations to a certain extent, because this is a lot of the energy of masculine and feminine that are both in that space of feeling energetically exhausted to a certain extent. So it's really important not to come into that place of assuming that something that you're receiving from the counterpart is directed directly towards you, but almost coming into that space of being compassionate towards another is how we're going to fortify through this. Because I see even now there may be a lot of spaces or possibilities of argumentation today because someone feels effectively energetically overburdened, and then someone tries to add a little bit extra to that moment of feeling energetically burdened, which can lead to a little bit of those snapping points. It's giving me a little bit of that the straw on the camel's back kind of stuff. Continuing to get clarification here between our 5 of Pentacles in its upright in combination with our 10 of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with the Moon. So a lot of this feeling of navigating uncertainty today. Not surprised to see this right now. Not during this period of time. Because again, what have we spoken about as it relates to a lot of the patterns or the pathwork that we see during Scorpio season? A lot of that ability to delve within, a lot of that ability to go inward, a lot of the ability of doing so right now. And I want to stress this, I don't want anyone doing shadow work right now if you don't feel like you have your own flashlight. Because there's a lot of this, I want to say, a lot of this tendency today to be very hyperbolic in relationality to feeling the uncertainty of the energetic unknown. So being able to operate in that state of positivity, putting a lot of that force and effort towards what feels energetically restorative. I'm seeing even now, that's potentially going to create a ballast point for anyone kind of experiencing that, right? Because again, when we're not sure what the future holds, we don't want to look at it and assume that there's only darkness there. We want to be able to assume that we're moving into that space of light. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy today, there's that sense of anticipation that feels like it's energetically building. And I want you to remember, if you're feeling like you're going through darkness right now, maybe you're there because you need to be the flashlight. I'm going to say it again. If you feel like you're going through some momentary darkness right now, I want you to focus and remind yourself that maybe you're there because it's time, it's required for you to be the flashlight. And so I see even now that for a lot of the energy across all of the frequencies, masculine and feminine energy, that sense of restoration, that sense of being able to build catharsis in that mutual expression of the uncertainty about what lies ahead. This is how these energies are effectively recognizing one another, because there's a lot of this energy that identifies and recognizes in separation that sense of compassion, that sense of conscientiousness, that care, that fear, that is the articulation of love, right? Because when we care about something, We put concern towards it. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming into divine union, I see a lot of potentially heavy conversations today. Things that feel like they require a lot of unpacking to a certain extent. Because for a lot of the energy facilitating and doing that work, I keep seeing that recognition point in speaking towards one another, trying to show each other parts of the self, but in a way that feels like it is positive and restorative. Something being articulated to shine a light for one another. This is why I'm saying even today, it's very important that you don't become energetically reactive, because that sense or space of someone articulating, and this is sometimes what happens, especially with Scorpio season, the ability of someone trying to shine a light on something, but when someone takes it personally, they don't feel it so much as that sense of illumination, so much as it feels like an energetic attack. So I see even now that ability of doing so, having a conversation from a place of compassion, like that is effectively saying to me, like, this is going to be the amplification of those who are having heavy conversations today and doing a lot of heavy work and experiencing that sense of breakthrough in the appreciation of having those difficult conversations for the sake of the compassion that you hold towards another. But that's why I'm articulating today is not the day to be reactive. Today is not the day to be defensive. Today is not the day to feel triggered because someone accidentally or inadvertently pokes at an abandonment wound. Because I see even now it's a little too easy today to pull something out of one's own space that you feel like you're saying because you're protecting or defending yourself that actually may cause more hurt than intended. So please be very conscientious about that today. Continuing to get clarification between our 10 of Cups in its reversal in combination with our 4 of Swords in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Knight of Swords in its upright. This is an amplification of what I was just articulating. A lot of defensiveness today. I got to point out, we've got a lot of reversed court cards on the table. And the only court card right now that's in its upright is the Knight of Swords, which says that ability of being energetically reactive is very high today. So just remember that everyone is in that space. Now, for the energy, and honestly, the truth is, for a lot of, like, the easement point I'm actually seeing right now has to do with the energy and separation. I mean, the thing about this is, for the energy and separation right now, there's something that I'm seeing here. I see that there may be a lot of energy right now in separation that's building into some kind of new partnerships where there's already some kind of sense of protectiveness that is occurring here. And I want to say that there's a little bit of that protectiveness here, that it actually feels positive is what I'm seeing. Because it says to me, and I told you, this is why there's something here that's happening in separation that feels like it's triggering. Because it says to me, someone being protective of you, even at the moment of something beginning. A little bit of that care or concern to a certain extent. It feels like it's energetically reactive because it's reminding someone of the lack of that care or concern that one may have had in a previous experience or a previous partnership. Like, that's what I see about it. It's almost like that sense of something in separation that occurs today that's triggering, but in a positive way. Because I told you, what are we identifying that's happening for a lot of the energy in separation right now? a lot of that energy in separation is identifying the easement of some of these new connections, something that's moving much more rapidly or easier, that was very hard to facilitate in a past connection, that's giving indication of someone that's moving in the same direction as you. When you experience it, it can make you very reactive in relationality to the past because you're observing the past in a different way. So I see even now, like, some of that, like, energetic airing of frustration that's occurring right now in separation has to do with the validation that one may be receiving in separation right now that reminds you of what felt like it was energetically difficult in the past. While for masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, that sense or that space of not taking something personally is the watchword today. Because I just keep seeing that there's a huge opportunity or possibility of someone trying to provide something to trying to provide something to the counterpart that they feel is helpful. But instead, it feels like the opposite. Instead, it feels like an additional energetic burden to a certain extent. Like, it almost, like, that's why I'm seeing even now, like, not coming into that space of assuming is important today. Because, like, that sense or space of being like, I was just trying to, and someone being like, I know what you were just trying to do, but, like, there's a lot of shortness here. It's what I'm seeing. So making sure that you, like, find that point of inner balance in recognizing the intentions of what someone brings towards you versus being reactive to it is very important right now. While for masculine and feminine energy, deep within divine union right now, I'm just recognizing and identifying that for a lot of that energy, deep within divine union right now, this is just having that sense or that space or feeling like one cannot move fast enough. There's just so much here that requires so much energetic work. I just see a lot of that energy right now deep within divine union that's working very tirelessly. And it's leading to some points of energetic exhaustion. It's leading to some points of energetic frustration. And that's why I said even now that the thing that's restorative, at least for the energy deep within divine union, is this is the energy that's pulling parts from themselves that they didn't know were there for the sake of the counterpart, specifically and particularly because these are the energies that are working to facilitate, like, they're not working in that fashion of demanding something from one another, but they're trying to be conscientious in relationality to what the other needs at that moment. Continuing to get clarification right now between our Four of Swords in its upright in combination with our King of Cups in its reversal. Oh, may I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with the World in its reversal. The thing about today is, and I want to stress this, because it says to me, and we spoke about this, interestingly, we were talking a little bit about this before we even began the read for today, which is when you feel that things around you are not in a point of balance, it becomes too easy to feel disoriented, to feeling like you're trying to energetically catch up. Moving oppositional to that energetic feeling today is valuable and important, because one's own ability of slowing down, one's own ability of being intentional, right? One's own ability of not allowing oneself to navigate that energetic overwhelm, right? But almost navigating a lot of that feeling of anticipation, if you will. A lot of that energetic uncertainty with the combination of the Moon card and the World card in its reversal right now, and also with a lot of this feeling of the Knight of Swords. We spoke a lot about this yesterday, which is the tendency, right, when Scorpio energy is in its detriment, That's that modality of doing something inadvertent, right? Having that moment of reactivity that causes too much energetic harm, right? Like a lot of that sting energy, if you will, right? But when we move, the beautification of that is when things are feeling difficult around you, but you're able to move with a lot of intentionality through it. You create your own sense of stability. You work through your own point of identifying and recognizing. And it requires a lot of that sense of moving with intentionality. And that's hard, right? Because it feels like everything around you is asking you to do otherwise. But that sense of doing so, and trusting one's own sense of self in the process. Remember that when we look towards the world and we see something that is missing, we have to say to ourselves, what can we become to allow that to exist? And if it's missing, then you may have to say to yourself today, I guess I'm going to have to be that. I guess I'm going to have to be that point of stability. I guess I'm going to have to be that point of compassion. I guess I'm going to have to be that flashlight. It may be hard today, is what we're seeing. It may be hard today because so much of the energy around things right now feels like it's disordered. It feels like it's reactive, and it may even be feeling like those who are coming towards you are reacting to some of those feelings of energetic disorder. Make sure that you're not matching someone in that modality. Make sure that you're transforming it into something that feels like it's positive, into something that feels like it's energetically productive. Even if that's difficult, that is what we see with a lot of this energy of transformation today. Now, masculine and feminine in separation right now, that's why I see that there's something that's occurring in separation. I'm getting here the kindness of strangers today for energy and separation. I just keep hearing the kindness of strangers is amplifying something that feels like it was missing in a previous relationship, in a previous partnership. It feels to me like someone is receiving something in separation that you had to fight tooth and claw for from someone in a previous connection. It feels like an energetic revelation, because for a lot of that energy, that feeling of support coming through with someone that's moving in alignment to you, that's why I see even now it feels both liberating, but it also feels frustrating, right? It feels like it's validating, but it also feels like it's energetically triggering. So I want you to hold space if that's happening today. And being able to articulate through it and not react to it is important. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, a lot of this work, I want to stress this, and I'm really conscientious for the energy coming into divine union right now, because a little bit of this energy is, again, reaching a bit of this make or break point. There could be a lot of expansive conversations today. There could be a lot of that sense of being able to come into a place of reaffirming one's own commitment to what one is effectively changing. So long as one is not reactive. Because if you're taking something personally today, if someone's trying to show you something and instead of receiving it as such, as a gift, you take it as an energetic attack, you take it as something that feels like it's meant to energetically harm you, this could create a lot of volatility here and potentially even energy moving back into separation. So being able to be observational, not reacting, and if someone hurts you today inadvertently, not reacting and giving them back a bit of their own medicine, but almost saying, I don't know if you intended this, but this is how that made me feel. Being able to articulate upon what was received is what's going to allow a sense or level of transformation here. But if this is feeling like a little bit of this can create a little bit of that sparring energy, which is what I'm a little bit concerned about here today. Because if someone comes towards you with a little bit of that and you just assume that was the intentionality, suddenly you've just got two energies that are being protective of the self by landing those inadvertent pain points at one another. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within divine union, I'm getting a lot of this keep on going. I just see a lot of the energy deep within divine union that's experiencing a lot of this same energetic pressure. But the thing about that is when you're moving with intentionality, you can't stop. You can't stop because you energetically feel it, right? A lot of this energy is just working very much, and it just feels like a lot of that work is like required in being able to focus or maintain one's own sense of attention in the midst of a lot of that disordered energy that feels like it's surrounding you at this time. So again, for a lot of the energy right now, deep within divine union, just don't be too hard on yourself in the process. Don't let yourself feel overwhelmed. Remember, I want everybody today to write lists of everything that you're getting done. I really want you to write lists of everything that you're accomplishing. I don't want you to get focused on what you feel like you're not necessarily landing a mark on, because I just keep seeing that for a lot of the energy deep within divine union, your work is valuable and necessary. And a lot of it feels like you're being hard on yourself in the process and wishing that you could do more. Continuing to get clarification between our moon card in combination with our Knight of Swords in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Queen of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy right now. And this is what I mean. Like, there's so much of this energy that I'm seeing here right now. And I just got to say it, like, I want everyone to be very grounded and focused and intentional today, because I just see, and it's going to be hard because it feels to me like a lot of this is navigating the emotionality of others and almost potentially feeling that burden of someone kind of putting something, putting that weight on you to a certain extent in such a way that it feels energetically difficult. And for feminine, especially right now, I want to say that a lot of this that I'm seeing has to do, I just see a lot of the feminine right now in a moment of navigating emotional overwhelm by being very still. I'm just recognizing this, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. I just see a lot of that feminine navigating through that moment or navigating through that hurdle to a certain extent by not feeling that sense of reacting to what is around them, but just moving in a space of energetic stillness. And I see even here that for a lot of that energy, particularly energy of, and this is having a different impact depending on where you are on the frequency cycles. For feminine energy in separation right now, that I want to say that conscientiousness, that articulationality, and I see even now if there's something about that wherein the feminine is expressing upon their emotions. This is a lot of the masculine in separation, appreciating and valuing the fact of the feminine that, again, potentially this is healing for the energy in separation, because I see even now there's almost a lot of feminine energy in separation apologizing for communicating their emotionality to masculine. And I see a lot of the masculine in separation coming towards feminine and saying, why are you apologizing for expressing how you feel? And I can almost see a lot of the feminine energy in separation, again, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, in that moment of a masculine saying to feminine, why are you apologizing for expressing how you feel? There's almost that point of recognition in relationality to the observation and the revelation of what the feminine energy has experienced in the past, which is why I see a lot of that overprotectiveness of the masculine in separation coming towards feminine that is apologizing energetically for something that the masculine does not feel is necessary to apologize for, which is why the masculine energy is becoming overprotective to the feminine right now in separation. Okay, thank you for clarifying. While for masculine energy right now, and that's why I see even now the masculine energy potentially becoming overprotective towards feminine if that context is occurring. While for masculine and feminine energy, and I even see a lot of the feminine maybe even saying to masculine at some point, I have had experiences wherein articulating my emotionality led to abandonment. I've had experiences wherein expressing my emotionality led to abandonment. So this is something this is like a wound getting unpacked today. That's what we're seeing is happening right now, which is why there's a lot of this heightened sensitivity to a certain extent. For masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this could feel I just got to be conscientious for the energy coming into divine union right now, because again, I'm going to say, if someone is articulating something that they recognize towards you, and doing so in a way that they're trying to show you something, remember and identify that that's not being navigated in such a way as to try to create pain to you. Often we try to say things to one another for the sake of helping us see things that we might feel like we need to understand. So I see even now a lot of those difficult conversations that are effectively being navigated right now, and they're hard and they're burdensome. But I'm also seeing even now that there's a lot of that expansiveness that's potentially occurring in those modalities, specifically and particularly because this is either those moments that is allowing for that observation of, I want to say, I keep seeing someone apologizing and saying there's no need to apologize because you're already in that space of changing something, versus energy coming into divine union, whereas there's some kind of identification point in the difference between what one can change versus what feels like it is integral to the self. So I see even now there may be a lot of those hard conversations, and that was the amplification of the cards we received yesterday, that combination, remember, of the Ace of Swords in its reversal versus the Ace of Pentacles. What is within one's own capacity to change versus what one feels is integrally a part of the person. So there may be an observational point right now that may be happening, and there may be some energy going into separation over this, in the difference between what feels like it is adaptable versus what feels like it is integral. Continuing to get clarification. Well, for the energy deep within divine union right now, I just see a lot of this energy giving one another support during this time. Feminine and masculine kind of being in that space where they're both in alignment, which is like they're both feeling energetically the same thing. But what are they doing at this time? They're pulling parts of themselves out that they didn't even know were there for the sake of the energetic counterpart, right? This is the energy that's finding that like additional reserve of energy. They're like unlocking that like extra bit of themselves, because this is a lot of that work that we see even now. That is the gift that we give to the counterpart, which is being able to arrive to the counterpart in ways that we ourselves might not necessarily be feeling. That's what we describe as the power of love. Continuing to get clarification between our Knight of Swords in its upright in combination with our World card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Judgment card. So I told you it's a lot of this weight of anticipation and expectation. It feels very heavy today, right? And that's why when we feel like that, like when we feel like we're navigating through that energetic soup, if you will, feels like you could cut it with a knife to a certain extent. That ability of doing so and just remaining balanced throughout it. Almost coming into that state of trusting the energetic process, doing what one needs to do, keeping one's own prioritization and focus in alignment. This is one of those days that it feels like it's very important. Now, for masculine and feminine energy, that ability of doing so, I see even now, a lot of that energy navigates forward in such a way in divine union that that's the point. When you're moving with intentionality, you surrender the energetic outcome because you feel within the self that regardless of what that outcome is, you know what you're doing is energetically best within the self, right? It doesn't create a lot of that changeableness in relationality to the volatility around the self. Because you say to oneself, regardless of what the energetic outcome is, this is what I would do regardless. So a lot of that intentionality is focused here. And for a lot of that energy deep within divine union, that ability of creating energetic balance, come what may. That is the gift that love creates for us when we're able to navigate forward in partnership. And so I see even now a lot of the gift that the energy within divine union is creating for one another right now is balance, even if one isn't feeling it. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of the love that we experience for one another. We can create things that are not there for the sake of the love that we hold for one another. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, a lot of this has to do with the recognition as to what one feels that one can change in order to facilitate an energetic connection versus what feels like one is integral, what feels like what is part of the self. So I either see here, there may be a lot of those conversations that are occurring right now in the recognition of, I almost see someone saying to another, apologizing for something that is integral to the self, and another person saying, you have nothing to apologize in that context. That isn't something about you that requires change. That's the energy almost saying like, that's why I energetically want to move forward with you, right? Or I see here that there may be some volatility that's occurring in some of the connections today, wherein that sense of someone asking someone to change and another person saying, I can't change that about myself. That is a part of my person. It may be leading to some energy going into separation, but I want to say even in that modality, that recognition and that understanding of why is potentially leading to immediate healing in the process. While for energy and separation right now, I just keep seeing that there's a lot of, I want to say, a lot of fundamental balance that is being restored within some energy in separation. And the balance that's being restored is the adjustment of one's own perception in relationality to what one received in the past. And I just keep seeing the same thing here, which is, again, if someone is receiving something easily, that was creating a great deal of difficulty to receive in past energetic connections, that's almost like the closure that one can't even resist or help because it's so it's so unavoidable. Like I almost see even now, that's why some of this energy in separation is feeling a little bit of that devastation, because it's almost the energy of receiving something and saying, I can't unsee that. I can't unsee how easily someone provided something in a context where another felt like it was an energetic fault. How easily someone just moved towards something and didn't bat an eyelash where another person felt like it was a huge limitation point. So we see even now like a lot of that energy feeling the validation in relationality to the pathwork that they find themselves in separation. But it's very energetically triggering in the process, because I see even now it's changing one's own perception in relationality to the past. Final card of today's, and I see a lot of that energy in separation, almost experiencing something today and saying, I can never go back to something because of what they're receiving in the present context. Final card between our Queen of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Judgment card in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now, and this is very important. We have here our Three of Swords in its reversal. A lot of healing today. And I know you're looking at this. I mean, you look at these cards today and you say, well, everything is in its reversal. There's so many cards here that feel like they're difficulties. They feel like they're energetic hurdles. Why? Because we've been talking about it. What is the gift? What is the gift that we find in moments of distress? What is the gift that we find in moments of energetic difficulty? Sometimes in moments of energetic difficulty, we find our truest version of self. We find the part of ourself that rises to the energetic challenge. And so I see even now that for a lot of this energy, navigating those spaces and places, working tirelessly in that space, recognizing what feels like it's energetically restorative, putting one's own power towards those things. We see even now like a lot of that energy doing that work in such a way. This isn't the amplification of the negative that comes towards you in those moments. This is the amplification of looking at something that is that is in a point of needing repair, looking at something that is in a point of needing energetic fixing and saying, what can I do to help? What can I do to restore? Right? That ability of coming into that sense or that space of energetic healing, it requires us to often pull those tools within ourselves, not even in what we find around ourselves. Not even in what we find around ourselves. This is a lot of energy right now, pulling parts of the self forward to be able to facilitate that point of healing, recognizing and identifying that and having that amplification. And for energy that is in separation right now, even in the midst of all of this, I see that there's something that's very beautiful and something very restorative for the energy in separation, specifically and particularly because this is the energy that even in the midst of everything feeling that intensity, creating that sense of balance within and being able to provide that sense of care and concern and love, potentially even establishing, working towards those new energetic connections and receiving that back in kind, that conscientiousness, it's allowing for that sense of deeper healing. And sometimes, I need to articulate this, that healing hurts, right? Healing is a painful process. As we're healing something, it can be energetically painful, but it's in that energetic pain that we understand that there is something that is being restored, because that is the work that we identify in something that we feel, right? And so I see even now that for a lot of that energy in separation, the energy observing something and saying that hurts, but it hurts because I'm healing from it. This is what's amplifying a lot of the direction and the affirmation of energy and separation, because it's almost a sense of the fact of being able to feel something in a way that you couldn't before, that makes one feel like you're moving back onto your own path work. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming into divine union, what I think is important right now is there's a lot of energy right now, even if there's something difficult that's happening while coming into divine union. There's a lot of this energy that's not necessarily thinking specifically about the self. They're not just thinking about what's best for the self, but they're putting a lot of conscientious in terms of thinking what is best. And that even in that space, there is that place of energetic love that is occurring coming into divine union right now. Because I see even now that like a lot of that energy, if they're experiencing moments of feeling that lack of alignment between what another is asking from the self versus what one person feels is energetically integral. I can see even now if there's some of those modalities that are being reached in relationality between the observation between what one desires to change versus what one feels is an integral part of the person. We see even now that that's allowing for that feeling of healthy moving back into separation, because there's a lot of love that is being put forth in that context. Where I see even now that for a lot of that energy that's continuing forward in this way, that apology or that energetic apology, I see a lot of energy potentially apologizing in counterpart connections, and someone saying you have no reason to apologize, because what you're apologizing for is effectively integrally you, and your own ability of desiring to change is the expression of you basically saying to the self, I wish I could be better at being myself. And this is a lot of the energy that says that intentionality is the gift that you bring into an energetic connection, because that is the energy that looks toward the self and says, how can I do better? Which is where we find the energy that's deep within divine union, which is why the energy deep within divine union, I don't want you to be so hard on yourself right now. Because for a lot of this energy, being hard on yourself right now, feeling a lot of that pressure, doing a lot of that work, facilitating through something to a certain extent, and feeling that weight or pressure, remember, you're exactly where you need to be. You're always on time. Celebrate where you are, celebrate where you're going, and be very strong in terms of where you find yourself today. And look towards those around you if you're feeling that. And remember that the compassion that you give to others, you need to also give back to the self. You are not exclusive to that level and degree of compassion that you give forth to others. You are part and parcel to it. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is our Page of Wands in its reversal. Now, A lot of, why is this coming? Why? Because today's an inner child healing day. Why is this coming through? It's an inner child healing day. So we're seeing even now a lot of those inner child wounds rising to the surface. And when we're navigating others' inner child wounds, it becomes far too easy for our own unhealed inner child to kind of want to run to the surface and be like, they started it. They started it. I was just sitting here. They did it. I'm just reacting to what they did to me. No, we don't do that. Okay. That's what children do. We don't do that. Okay. So that space or that ability of doing so, that recognition, you can have that moment and recognize the inner child that says, I have a right to, and being like, yeah, you do. But we don't do things because we have a right to. We do things because we know they are right. Right? I'm going to say it again for all of you here, okay? And this is happening across all of the frequencies, okay? We don't do things because we say, I have a right to. We do things because we say, I know what's right. So that accommodation point, right? Being able to put a lot of that place into space. I want you to navigate that right now. If someone comes towards you with something that feels like it's energetically provocative and you're feeling triggered by it, I want you to imagine that that is that person's unhealed inner child coming to the surface. That is their fear. That is their anxiety. That is their provocation point. And one's own ability to navigate that in such a way that you can look towards it and not feel like you need to react to it or defend yourself from it, but almost saying, what do you feel like that person truly needs? What is that pain asking for? That ability of being introspective upon it can allow to a lot of breakthroughs. Now, I'm not saying that in such a way that says that you should like move in a space of compassion towards someone that is moving towards you in a negative space. Hold your own energetic boundaries to a certain extent, but being able to be mindful that everyone's kind of in that space of feeling very triggered right now, and a lot of those inner child wounds rising to the surface will help you navigate those spaces with a lot of compassion. And that goes for both the energy deep within divine union right now, as well as the energy in separation. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, gracestrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please remember, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. A couple of updates before we move into personal readings today. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who attended our recent class on the lovers. Our next class will be held on Wednesday, November 13th. At 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. We will be continuing our studies into the tarot with a focus on the Chariot card. If you would like to become a part of our monthly tarot class program, all you need to do is head over to my Substack, gracestrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription to my Substack will grant you access and entry into each month's live classes. You will also have access to the full repository and recordings of the course materials that we have previously studied. That's about 7 hours worth of material right now. You don't need to catch up for the next class. I'll be giving a recap in each class on what we've studied thus far, but it will be there for your perusal when you're ready to receive it. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students. And if you become a founding member to my Substack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you will also receive a complimentary one-on-one mentorship class with me, wherein we will assess where you are on your own personal tarot journey, and I'll give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize both those classes and your personal practice most effectively going forward. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. So I want to thank you if you're just joining us there for the first time, and I look forward to potentially seeing you at our next class. And even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings and services. Also, if you are a subscriber here, on TikTok. Please make sure to head over to the Discord channel that is specifically for our TikTok subscribers. You will find an additional coupon code there that will give you an additional discount on that Discord membership. If you follow, even if you don't become a paid subscriber over on my Substack, please, I encourage you to follow me there, because that's where I post each day's tarot spread with the photo. You'll also have access to, I also post the podcast there of each day's daily collective read. You'll also have access to my weekly newsletter, which will let you know about our in-person events as well as our online schedule. I also post giveaway information there. Speaking of giveaways, we have announced the winner for our October giveaway. We are now in the process of having our November giveaway. If you would like to become a part of our November giveaway to win a free private tarot reading with me, simply head over to the link tree in my bio. And you will find there a link to a 2-minute survey. Filling out that survey will grant you an entry into the giveaway. But if you would like to increase your chances of winning, go ahead and forward that survey to a friend, because when I pull the winner, I will be gifting away not only a reading to the person that wins, but also to the person that referred them. Also, for those that are interested, I also offer, on top of my standard life path readings, mentorship classes. These are classes that can focus on whatever area or course of study that you are most interested in learning about. They are personalized based upon those clients that are seeking a more personal educational experience with me. Those classes can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series. That is 4 45-minute readings, weekly or bi-weekly as your schedule permits. Also, for my clients that are seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, weekly or bi-weekly, so as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.